What's up, YouTube? Georgia Silverhunter back, and today we'll be doing a review of the 10.1-inch LCD digital microscope model ODM202 from the company Opqpq that you can find on Amazon.com. Let's jump into it. So before we jump into it, I did want to let everyone know that the good folks over at Opqpq did send me this unit free of charge to review. That said, everything you hear in this review is my honest opinion of using the device for a couple of hours last night and kind of thinking about how I would use it in my own coin roll hunting workflow. So whatever you hear from me is not biased by the fact that I got it for free. It is my honest opinion of the unit. That said, as you go through this video, if at any point you are interested in purchasing this microscope, there is a link in the description down below. And if you click on that link, you will get a 10% off coupon applied to the order. And if you order soon, Amazon right now is also offering an additional $20 off the device. So make sure if you are interested that you do look below and grab the link from my description. If this unit is out of your price point, which we'll get into in a minute, Opqpq does have similar microscopes with smaller LCDs and lower price points. So they have something for everyone. All right, so let's talk about this microscope for just a minute. Let's get into the specs. So we're just going to hit the high points of the specs that I think you care about. You can go on Amazon.com to read more about this unit, but the key features are it is a 10.1-inch HD monitor. It does have a resolution of 1024 by 600, so if it's an HD monitor, it is scaled. It can take photos at 16 megapixels all the way down to 4 megapixels and can capture video at 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames per second. The zoom capability is also really impressive, which you'll see later in the video, that it has the capability to zoom 1x to 1300x between being able to move the camera up and down and through its digital zoom. The other cool feature is that it does sport a micro SD card, and they do ship it with a 32 gig card, so lots of storage for capturing images, and it does hook up completely to your PC for viewing on that PC, or you can hook up a mini HDMI port and view it through a TV or computer monitor. It does also come with a remote control, which we'll cover a little bit later in the video. And outside of that, it does come with a 1-year warranty. So with that, let's get into the unboxing and then on to putting it together and using it. So let's first look at the unboxing. Now you can see I have already opened the outer box. This is the box that Amazon shipped it in. And I'll be honest, my only disappointment here, and it's probably on Amazon, that with all this open space and this being electronics, it would have been nice had they backfilled this empty space with some peanuts or paper, or maybe one of those air pillows or something, just to keep this thing from bouncing around in there. But like I said, that's on Amazon. I'm sure not the manufacturer. Here is the unit. Let me see if I can get that here nice and square for you. We are looking at the Opqpq 10.1-inch LCD digital microscope. This is model ODM202. Nice right there on the front of the box. And you get a picture of what this thing's going to look like when it's all put together. So to look at the interior of the box, now it wasn't taped. You can just open that up and see. Inside the box, everything's got its own nice little compartment. It looks like it was secure in its shipment, so even though it banged around in that bigger box, I'm sure it's going to be fine, or at least I hope so. Inside here, we have some instructions, which I'm sure we'll need to look at, because this thing is not as simple as like a suction cup, like my old digital scope. So it looks like there's a mobile app for it too, but we'll get into these instructions a little bit later. I just want to get all the components out, and then we'll take a look or a deep dive into how you put this thing together. So here is our 10.1-inch LCD. You can see there attached to it is we got our camera there on the bottom. Looks like we've got some sort of microfiber cloth for cleaning the LED or the LCD. We have some cables here. Looks like we've got, a couple of maybe USB-C cables. we've got some sort of remote control. And here we have an HDMI cable, because one of the features of this, it does hook up to, I believe, your computer or possibly even a TV. So we're going to check that out as part of this review. And then, of course, it does have the dual lighting unit. Let's see here. How can I get this out? I don't want to break anything. So let's see here. This looks like it's the stand. There we go. So there is the wind up and down for your moving the camera up and down, which is pretty nice. And I'm sure there's a name for that, like an arm or a boom or something like that. We have, and again, I'm doing this based on some guessing because I haven't read the manual yet, but we have a plug, which we're going to need, like all electronic devices need. Looks like we've got some cap here to help visually make the camera look good at some point where it makes a connection. And then we have the base. And this does have twin LED lights to help focus light to eliminate shadows. And for coin roll hunting, you really need that, because I do see people from time to time misidentifying coins because they're looking at shadows rather than the coin itself or the actual details of the coin. So those are all the pieces. I'm going to go ahead and read the manual and make sure I put this thing together right, and we'll maybe assemble it together on camera. So to get through our first couple of steps, we want to grab our little boom arm here. And the instructions say to turn this thing clockwise, like 1 or 2 turns. I don't know if that's because they want you to get it more in the middle. If you go counterclockwise, it screws it up towards the top. But at the end of the day, you're going to screw this down into the base, and then you're going to use this to tighten it so that everything is straight and in line with the way you want it. There is a little screw head here. So we just take this and we just spin it on until we have it fairly snug, or at least snug enough to where I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit for you here, until this is vertically in line with the base. So that's where we want to keep turning it. And you can see right there I'm too tight. So we come here, and then we just use this little ring down here, we turn it clockwise until that base is nice and tight and that boom arm is nice and tight. So that gets us through the first couple of steps. The next step is adding the LCD monitor. So next we're going to install the monitor, and it's really easy. There's these 2 little screws right here at the top. They actually ship screwed almost all the way in, and you're going to want to loosen those until they're flush with the ring, or you can take them out completely. That's up to you. That's your choice. The monitor and microscope are actually one full piece. So here's your 10.1-inch LCD, and you can see the camera where the microscope is there on the bottom. And what you're going to want to do is just carefully fit that down in the ring from the base. And let me turn it this way so you can see. This thing actually does kind of push down inside there so it's nice and snug. And once you have it where you want it, so it's squared, you just tighten these. And I wouldn't over tighten them. It doesn't say anything in the instructions, but you just want to put a little pressure so that thing doesn't swing around inside that little hole. But that is all you need to do to attach the LCD monitor. And then they say to use these screws to just make sure the LCD moves up and down, and you can tighten and loosen this screw to make it easier or harder to move the camera up or down from the base. And if you have it to where you really want it, so it's a good distance for you, you can tighten this screw, and then it's very hard to move. So this is sort of your adjustment screw on getting the camera up and down, or at least locking that adjustment in place, if that makes sense. All right, so let me look at the next steps. So before we get into the connectivity of this microscope, I did want to go back and let you guys know I did skip a step. It was in the instructions, but it wasn't clear to me until I got the LCD attached. And once I did, I realized that this boom was was leaning forward quite significantly. And all I had to do was get a little adjustable wrench. This little screw or bolt loosens up a little bit, and this thing can pivot back and forth or swivel back and forth. And I got it as close to vertical as I could get it. And then you just tighten that bolt back up, and then you have a nice vertical microscope stand. If it's not nice and perpendicular to the ground, this camera will end up being at an angle, Maybe there's some applications for that, but I prefer it to be straight up and down. So let's talk about connectivity. The unit comes with a mini HDMI port that allows you to hook this up to an external display. And when you do that, it actually disables this LCD and takes the output out to whatever you hook it up to. So I have a 27-inch screen, and I'll put a little video what it looks like down here in the lower right-hand corner when I hook this up using this port. And it does come with a supplied cable. It did also ship with a 32 gigabyte micro SD card. You can get that out just by punching in with a little bit of force on there. It is spring-loaded, and that card will pop right out. But you use this for storing video that you can take directly from the unit or screenshots directly from the unit. You can plug this thing up to your computer using this USB-C to USB-A cable. And when it's plugged into your computer, you can do two things with it. One, you can read data off of this card, or two, you can actually feed whatever's coming out of the microscope directly into your computer. This last output port is actually a 5-volt output, which, as you can see, I already have it hooked up down to this USB-C in, and that powers these lights that are built into the base. You can do this just the opposite if you like as well. You can power the base and then, power the base here, and then use this USB output port into this plug to charge the LCD. So it's a little bit, it gives you some options on do you want to power from here down or from the base up. But you can see right now I've just got this plugged into the supplied AC adapter, and I did have this plugged in. I just took it out so you guys could see how it worked. Your other option is to plug this into your computer. Your computer can actually charge this thing as well. And I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. According to the documentation, when fully charged, you should get 2 to 3 hours of usage with this completely unplugged from power. So if you were traveling or had some application where you had to take this and you didn't have a computer or a power outlet to hook it up to, you could use it as a standalone unit. Okay, so let's actually jump into using this microscope. And to help us demonstrate it, we're going to go ahead and use 2 error coins that I have found coin roll hunting over the years to demo this unit. Before we actually get these under the scope, though, I am going to stop here and say, so far in my testing, I haven't found that these side lights are doing me much good. I think there are applications where they will be useful. For me, I'm just not finding it. And you can control the brightness of these. There's a little touch sensor back here. You can see if I slide my fingers to the right, the lights on the sides get bright. And if I slide them down, they turn off. So for my usage, most of the time they'll be off. And the light on the microscope is controlled through a very similar touch control here. I will say one of the drawbacks of that sensor being there is you do accidentally touch it a lot. You can see I'm rubbing my finger on these buttons and it's adjusting the light. So while it's cool, I think the placement could be a little better. So with that said, let's go ahead and get a couple of coins under the scope. We'll start with this 1974 D DDO. And typically you're looking for doubling here in the word trust, and there is a telltale sign of a little notch being here in the 4. And you can see just under 1x zoom, you can easily see all of the telltale markers. I'm just zooming here, or I'm sorry, focusing. You can focus the unit by turning this little barrel like most microscopes. Under just 1x zoom, based on how I have this set up, you could easily identify this telltale notch and the doubling here in the U and the doubling in the S and a little bit of doubling in the T and the double stem here in the R. But what I think makes this microscope really special is the digital zoom feature is fantastic. I just touch the left or right button and you'll see that we are digitally zooming without much effort. Now, once I get in close, I can always continue to refine that zoom to help me see the markers that I'm looking for. So let me come down here, like right here in the U, we can actually see there's 2 pieces of this U. We can see there's a double S here. So this thing is really, really powerful. I don't have to move the microscope up and down to zoom, I can do it through these buttons. And because it locks in place, it makes focusing that much easier. Using my old digital scope, because it was on sort of a flex arm, when you focused it, that arm would flex up and down, and when you let go, it would come out of focus again, which made it sometimes very difficult to use. This one I just like because it's really straightforward, and that digital zoom makes life really, really easy. And to show you one more example, this is the 1988 with the penny with the reverse of the 1989. And it's a very, very minor change. I'm going to fix my camera at 1x zoom, so we'll show off the power of the microscope. So just looking at this, it might be tough to tell the difference, especially if you don't know what you're looking for. Let me focus this again. There we go. What I'm looking for in this particular coin is a serif in this G. Right? You can see the sideways line here and the bar that goes down below the G. That is the telltale sign of the 1989 reverse instead of the 88. And this microscope makes it really, really easy to see that. Something else this microscope does, if you want to get pictures to share with your colleagues, your friends, your YouTube buddies, whoever you have, to get that screenshot, all you have to do is click this OK button. And just like that, you'll see that 14 go to a 15, and we have now saved the screenshot to the SD card. So really, really straightforward to use. So if I could change one thing about this unit, it would be the base. Now, I think the base is really nice. I think it's weighted, it's heavy, it holds the unit up. It is a really nice kind of brushed aluminum. It does slide very well. I mean, if I put a coin on it, you can hear it sliding on here. But if you're coin roll hunting, or if you're doing something where there's something of value that you're putting under here to put under the microscope, you are literally putting metal on metal, and you are potentially degrading a valuable coin by scratching it on this surface. Now, I'm not sure how much damage it would actually do. It's just something that would be in the back of my head. If I had a $2,000 Morgan silver dollar, would I really want to be scratching it around on this flat aluminum? And the answer is no. So it would have been nice had they had something either you could lay over this, or perhaps even change the material down here on the base to something that wouldn't damage whatever you were trying to look at under the microscope. And the way I would personally get around that is either taking that little cloth they gave you to clean the screen, and use that to put underneath your microscope like so. Or maybe even better, take like a flip, like a coin flip, right? And the nice thing is you can slide your coin inside the little hole, and you have a way to slide that in and out without damaging the coin on the metal. So I'll probably find something for my needs, and this may actually be it, just to make sure I'm not, when I'm looking at really, really potentially valuable coins, I'm not damaging them by rubbing them on this base. But other than that, that's the only really super major issue that I have with this unit. So the unit does come with a remote control. I've played with it a little bit. I'll be honest, I've tried to find an application for it. And what I'm struggling with is it is a microscope, and to interact with it, I have to push things underneath the scope. And if I'm this close to it, I can push these buttons. So I just don't know why I need this. I can't think of an application where I would put something under the scope and then like walk away. But it does work, and I'll just show you. I'll back up here. If I, push the right button, it does zoom. I can zoom back out. I can push the OK button to grab a screenshot. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the remote does work. It is a solid little unit. It's very cheap. It's very thin. If you were to step on this, you would break it instantly. So you will need to be gentle with it. But I just haven't figured out an application for it. So if you buy this unit and you can come up with one, I would love to hear it. Let me know in the comments down below. So if you're interested in using this microscope along with your computer or Mac, I'm going to show you how that works right now. Now, I have a MacBook, so this will be instructions for Mac people, but the paper instructions that come with the microscope explain how to use this for Windows, and it's very, very similar. So what I'm showing you here, while it may not port exactly to a PC, the instructions in the manual are easy enough to follow. But here's our scope. Now I've gone ahead and plugged it into my little USB port over there hanging off my MacBook. And when I first plug it in, you'll see that it says USB-C MSDC, press OK to switch to UVC. And what that means, you don't need to understand all that language. What it means is when I first plug it in, it's assuming I want to read the micro SD card. And if I come over here to my MacBook, you'll see that I have a new drive called No Name, and that is the micro SD card that is connected inside that microscope. So I'll just preview one of the photos. There it is. That's that FG we were looking at, that 1988 penny. And I can cruise through some of my other screenshots that I've taken along the way. Now, if I want to actually display this up to my MacBook, I do want to click OK to switch this, and I think that stands for Universal Virtual Camera is what that stands for. I could be wrong. But when I click OK, you'll see that the microscope kind of comes to life here. I don't know why it just did it inverse. And on the Mac, to make it work, you do have to use an app called Photo Booth, which is free to use. I already have it keyed up there, so we'll click Photo Booth. And there it is. I don't know if I've got the focus done very well. Let's see here and adjust the focus. Yeah, it actually is pretty focused. And of course, from here, I can then go full screen and take advantage of this big 27-inch monitor. So there it is, and I'll move my penny around so you can see this is live. But that's how easy it is. You just plug in the USB cable, and you need to know which app to start, and away you go. So it's super duper easy. So before we jump into the final pros and cons and wrap up, I did want to take a second to show you the software that's actually built into this unit. And before I get in there, I want to show you that out of the box, if you have the microscope on an image and you just tap that OK button, you'll see that 11 turn to 12. And what that means is it took a quick screenshot of whatever I was looking at. So when I get into the software, you will see that the first option is a playback option. And you can see here is the image that I just took of my penny. Here's another image of a penny I took, and there's a quarter I had, and this was me just playing with the screenshot functionality. So you can view your images here. You can also hook this thing up to your computer and read the images off the SD card that way, or you can eject the SD card off of the back of this thing and plug it into your computer if you have a micro SD card reader on your computer. The unit also can take video, and I'll show you where the settings are for that in just a moment. But we have image quality settings, and I think this all has to do with the microscope itself. You've got the WDR function on here, which changes the resolution the way it works. You can make it do in color or black and white or do negative images. You can set the white balance to calibrated, manual, or auto. You can adjust the image brightness. There's all kinds of settings in here. I have found so far that I'm happy with the defaults out of the box, but I'm sure I'll learn to change a few of them as time goes on. But if you're not a big techie, honestly, it works great just the way it is. The next set of settings is where you can set this OK button. So by default, we are doing photos at 16 megapixels. If I were to change that shortcut button to video, it would default to 1080p at 30 frames per second. You could also change it to 720p at 60 frames per second, but with a microscope, I'm not really sure you'd need that unless maybe you were doing like a live recording of some soldering or something like that. But and maybe, I guess, doing coin roll hunting, if you were looking at a camera, looking at a coin, you could record that, but I'm not sure how you do the audio with it. Outside of that, you can adjust the LCD brightness. You can set the auto on and off, or the auto off. So, if you don't touch it for 5 minutes, it turns itself off. It supports various languages. It sets the date and time, and it does attach that to your photos and your videos. And of course, you have some options to reset the unit back to its factory settings. The last thing that's interesting that I want to play with, but I haven't had time, and that is you can set lines up on the screen, and you can actually add a ruler, which I think is also really cool. And I'll just turn it on here so you can see it. Again, I haven't played with it, but if you needed to be able to measure something on the screen, I think it's pretty neat that it does support some sort of measurement or ruler function. And I'll eventually find a use for that, but I just don't have one today. So all in all, it is a very, very functional unit, and the software in here is very cool. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into our final pros and cons and our wrap up. So for my final thoughts, I will say, all in all, this is a great microscope. I've thoroughly enjoyed using it to make this review, and I'm sure I will enjoy using it for my future coin roll hunts. I do want to take a few minutes to go through what I think are the biggest pros and the biggest cons of this unit in case you were thinking about making a purchase. So let's start with the pros. You don't need a computer to use this. I know it's obvious with the big screen, but I can't help but point this out. Many of the inexpensive scopes available today do require a desktop or a laptop to work, as you are basically just buying the scope or the camera, and the software really does all the work, or you're doing all the work by adjusting the arm to get the camera and the focus just right. Two, it's a really solid piece of equipment. It weighs in at nearly 4 pounds, or really just a little over 4 pounds, with the metal frame, brushed aluminum base, 10-inch LCDs, additional lighting. It just makes you feel like you're using a high-quality piece of equipment. Number 3, the ease and utility of use is really outstanding. Getting the scope at just the right height or just the right lighting for your needs is super easy. From there, getting the magnification and focus for your subject is a breeze. Number 4, the relatively high quality display. We talked about it earlier. It says it's an HD display, but the pixel count's just not quite there, but it is a really nice display. The software and connectivity options are just fantastic. I'm still working out exactly what setup will work best for me, and I will enjoy kind of going through the trial and error to see how this is going to fit into my workflow so that it feels just right. Do I use it as a standalone scope? Do I hook it up to my monitor? Do I connect it to my PC? I mean, at the end of the day, they'll all work. I just have to figure out what's going to work best for me. And I think that'll be some of the fun for you guys too, figuring out what works best for you. I just love that this gives me options. So now on to the cons. I covered this during the video, but the base should have some out-of-the-box options outside of just a metal slab that could potentially damage your subject. Whether it's a circuit board or a high-end coin, you really just don't want to be rubbing that around on a piece of brushed aluminum metal. There should be some other options, and I showed you in the video some things you can do that are really easy, right? So it's not, I'm not really put out by this, but it would just been nice had they thought that through. I also talked about this. The remote is kind of a neat idea, but ultimately I just think it's useless. I don't see a really good use for it. 3, while the build quality is a big plus, it's also a drawback because it makes the device a little bit unwieldy if you needed to travel with it. Granted, you could disassemble it into a couple of pieces in just a few minutes. You would still have a couple of heavy metal frames, you know, a sort of sensitive or potentially breakable LCD and camera piece with it, and trying to get it from point A to B safely without denting or scratching or breaking it, I think is going to be problematic. So this may be a non-issue for most of you, but for me, I travel from time to time, and I do like the idea that I can just disassemble my current scope, throw it in my bag, and away I go. Now, granted, I do need to bring my PC with me, but that goes with me kind of everywhere I go anyway. So I should say my laptop. I don't travel with like a desktop or anything. And lastly, and I didn't really cover this in the middle of the video because I did want to save it to the end, but it's the price. I didn't cover this in a lot of detail, but this unit today, as of filming on March 21st, through the Opqpq Amazon store, is $279.99. This is a high-end scope. Now, as I said earlier, they do have some lower-end scopes that have smaller screens and come in at lower price points. This is an expensive piece of equipment. It is a high-end scope, and I'm not saying it's not worth that price tag. It's just expensive. So, you know, if you're part of my younger audience or you're just getting into the hobby and you don't have a lot of extra money, this price point may be a little high for you. That said, I do want to remind you that through April 5th of 2023, I do have a link in the description down below this video that you will get an additional 10% discount. And again, as of filming, there is an additional $20 coupon that Amazon will let you apply. So that brings this unit down from $279.99 to $231.99, making it a little bit more affordable, but still pretty high. So, I think it's up to you to determine whether this kind of price tag is for you or not. Overall, I am really happy with this microscope. That said, if you are budget conscious or on a tight budget and just need something that can magnify your coins or your circuit board or whatever you're trying to magnify, there are much cheaper options available to you. But if you want something that has tons of features, a really nice screen, real versatility, I think this is a great option and you should consider it. So I hope you enjoyed this video review of the Opqpq ODM202 digital microscope. If you did, let me know by dropping down below and clicking on that like button and leaving me a comment. If you are new to the channel or into coin roll hunting, silver stacking, hunting through tons of coins for that super rare find or some silver, consider clicking on that subscribe button. Click on that little bell so you get notified each and every time I release a new video. Again, if you do decide this is the right scope for you, make sure you drop down below and click on that affiliate link. It'll get you that additional 10% off at least through April 5th, and it provides a little bit of additional support to the channel, as I do make a little bit of money every time I sell something through Amazon. With that said, I hope you are all doing well, take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.